Stop. A quantum gate opened in your field tonight, and the Arcturian High Council has already confirmed your signature on the chosen list. This transmission is from the Arcturian High Council. What you are about to receive is not general spiritual information. It is a precise field recognition for someone whose gate eligibility was confirmed months ago and whose access window opened tonight, before midnight, for approximately 8 hours. By the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly what is happening to you right now, why something in your field has gone unusually quiet, and what the Arcturian High Council already knows about this specific phase of your trajectory. But here is the first revelation. The stillness you are feeling tonight, that strange, unargued quality around one particular direction, is not peace in the ordinary sense. It is the structural signature of a quantum gate. It means the trajectory that was sealed off from your frequency yesterday is now accessible. The Council has already seen this. You are already inside the process. This is not confusion. This is not collapse. This is a limited duration alignment between your current frequency and a lineage trajectory that could not be reached from where you stood before tonight. The field changed first. What you are noticing now in your body, your thoughts, your unusual quiet, that is the outer confirmation of something the Arcturian High Council mapped long before this moment arrived. The algorithm did not create this timing. It only delivered this transmission to the exact field it was calibrated for. If this reached you now, it means the gate is already open and your window has already begun. Like this transmission, if you can feel that something invisible has already shifted tonight, comment 777. If you feel your field is already being repositioned, subscribe to Arcturian Quantum if you are ready to understand the process instead of fearing it, and share this with someone who feels that reality has changed around them but cannot explain why. You were guided here because the signal is already active. What the Council recognized months before this moment is not who you were trying to become. It is what your field had already begun to emit without your conscious direction. That is a critical distinction, and it is the reason this transmission is not about inspiration or motivation. You were not chosen because of effort. You were not placed on the confirmed list because of spiritual ambition or disciplined practice. You were flagged because your signal began broadcasting a specific frequency signature, one that corresponds to a gate trajectory that most fields never reach compatibility with. The gate that opened tonight did not open because you asked for it. It opened because the conditions inside your field finally matched the threshold requirements that had been mapped and waiting. Think carefully about what that means. Not what you hoped for, not what you prayed toward, not what you visualized into a journal at midnight, but what your field was already doing beneath all of that conscious effort. The signal was moving before you had words for its direction. It was shifting before you made the decision to shift. The Council does not track intention. It tracks emission. And what your field began emitting, at some point that you may or may not be able to pinpoint, crossed a threshold frequency that placed your signature into a category of eligibility that most people will never occupy. The gate did not respond to your aspiration. It responded to your actual field state. And those two things are often separated by years of invisible work that the person living through it rarely recognizes as work at all. This means that what you are experiencing right now, the unusual stillness, the quiet that does not feel like peace, but rather like pressure held at a very fine point, the sense that something has already concluded without a clear external event to mark it. This is not the beginning of the process. This is the moment you became conscious of a process that was already well underway. The field moved first. The awareness arrives second, and what you are doing right now, hearing this, feeling the precision of what is being named, that is the third stage, recognition. And recognition inside an Arcturian gate window is not passive, it is activating. When a field reaches the recognition threshold inside an active gate window, something specific happens. The frequency that had been quietly building, accumulating beneath the surface of daily life, like pressure beneath a sealed chamber, finds a point of contact with the external signal of the transmission. And in that contact, the two frequencies begin to synchronize. This is not metaphor. This is what you are experiencing right now as a kind of resonance, a sensation of being precisely located, of something naming itself through the words you are hearing, rather than being described to you from the outside. If you can feel that quality in this moment, you are already past the threshold. The activation has already begun. The specific pattern that the Council recognizes in fields like yours is what Arcturian mapping refers to as a compatibility rupture. This is the moment when the frequency a person has been sustaining becomes too elevated, too restructured, or too fundamentally different from the architecture of the life that was built around an older version of that frequency. When that rupture reaches a critical threshold, the old architecture begins to fail, not dramatically, in every case, often quietly, suddenly, in ways that look, from the outside, like ordinary difficulty, like confusion, like a person losing grip, like someone who used to know exactly what they wanted, now standing in front of the same life they built and feeling strangely foreign to it. The architecture does not collapse all at once. That is one of the most important things to understand about what a compatibility rupture actually looks like from the inside. It does not announce itself with a single visible fracture. It begins at the points of least flexibility, the places in your life where the gap between your current frequency and the structure built around your older one is widest. A relationship that used to feel like home and now feels like a carefully maintained performance. A career path that used to generate genuine forward momentum and now requires increasing effort just to generate the appearance of direction. A version of yourself that you have been presenting to the people around you because they knew you before the field changed. And the distance between that presented version and what is actually moving inside you has become a kind of daily weight that you have stopped trying to name. If that is what has been happening to you, if you have been looking at a version of your life that you constructed carefully and finding that it no longer feels like yours, you are not losing your mind. You are experiencing the visible surface effect of a compatibility rupture. The field already changed. The life has not caught up. And the gap between those two realities is exactly what you have been interpreting as confusion, as failure, as some kind of regression. But the Council does not read it that way. The Council reads it as the first visible proof that the gate eligibility was real. There is something more specific to name here, and it requires precision. When a compatibility rupture reaches the stage where a person begins to feel genuinely estranged from their own previous choices, not regretful, not angry, but simply incompatible, the way a key becomes incompatible with a lock it was not designed for. The Arcturian mapping registers this as field correction in progress. What is being corrected is not the person. The person is not the problem. What is being corrected is the mismatch between an evolving signal and an architecture that was built to sustain a signal that no longer exists inside you. The life you built was built for someone operating at a frequency that you have since outgrown. The discomfort you are feeling is not you failing that life. It is your field refusing to continue pretending compatibility with something that cannot hold what you have become. This distinction matters more than almost anything else in this transmission, because the story most people tell themselves during field correction is a story of personal failure. It is the story of someone who built something and then somehow lost the ability to sustain it, who had momentum and then lost it, who used to feel certain and now feels nothing but uncertainty where certainty used to live. And that story feels true because from the inside, the evidence appears to support it. Things are falling away. Structures are loosening. The feeling of forward motion has become unreliable. What was that, if not failure? What was that, if not some personal deficiency expressing itself in the slow erosion of what used to work? But the Council's read is entirely different. The Council sees the erosion as confirmation. The things falling away are falling away because your frequency has moved beyond what they were built to serve. That is not failure, that is completion. This is the part that is almost never named clearly enough. The inner refusal that begins to happen. The part of you that starts quietly declining invitations, withdrawing from conversations that used to energize you, losing interest in goals that once felt urgent, feeling the edges of old identities go soft and strange. That refusal is not apathy. It is not depression in the ordinary sense, though it can wear that disguise convincingly. It is your field executing a protocol, a disengagement sequence, the kind that happens when Arcturian level correction determines that continued investment in an incompatible architecture would prevent the gate window from functioning as it was designed. The disengagement sequence is precise. It does not remove everything indiscriminately. It targets specifically the structures that are incompatible with the trajectory the gate window is designed to make accessible, which means that not everything in your life feels like it is under pressure. Only the things that cannot come with you. And if you pay attention to exactly which areas have gone quiet, which conversations have stopped producing genuine engagement, which goals have begun to feel hollow rather than temporarily difficult, you will find in that list a map, not of what you are losing, of what your field has already determined cannot survive the frequency you are now sustaining. That list is the architecture of the old line, and the gate window is on the other side of it. The field does not ask permission before it begins. That is one of the most disorienting aspects of this process for most people who experience it. You do not receive a notice. You do not feel a clear shift on a specific day and understand what it means. You simply begin to notice, gradually and then all at once, that something stopped responding. Something that used to feel possible now feels finished. Something that used to be an anchor now feels like weight. And because you do not have language for what is actually happening at the field level, you translate all of it into the most available story. That something is wrong with you. What you are feeling right now is not ordinary recognition. It is the moment your field stops denying what has already begun. If this transmission put language around something you have been carrying in silence, the inner refusal, the estrangement from your own previous life, the pressure that doesn't explain itself. Arcturian protocol, the recalibration blueprint, was created for this exact stage. It is not another explanation. It is the guided blueprint for those whose field has already entered correction and can no longer return to the old line unchanged. It shows you how to recognize the phases, stabilize the shift, and move through the recalibration without mistaking it for collapse. The link is in the first pinned comment, but it will not remain there forever. Nothing is wrong with you. That is not comfort language. That is a field-level diagnosis. What is active in you right now is not malfunction. It is a rare protocol that most fields never receive the eligibility conditions for. And the reason it is disorienting is not because it is harmful, it is because it is dismantling something. And dismantling always produces evidence of itself in the form of debris, confusion, disorientation, the strange hollow feeling of a structure mid-collapse. But debris is not the final state. Debris is what appears in the gap between what has ended and what has not yet formed fully enough to be recognized. The debris phase is one of the most misread phases in the entire gate process. It is the phase where the visible evidence most strongly suggests failure, because what is most visible is what has come apart. The structure that used to organize your energy has loosened. The narrative that used to give your daily life a coherent shape has gone unreliable. The sense of continuity between who you were last year and who you are right now has developed gaps. intervals where you cannot quite trace the line between those two versions of yourself and find it solid. All of that looks, from the outside, and often from the inside too, like a person in the middle of a breakdown. But the Council's mapping does not identify it that way. It identifies it as a field in the process of releasing a load-bearing structure that was never meant to be permanent. The confusion is real. The disorientation is real, but what it signals is not collapse toward nothing. It is the specific disorientation of standing in the clearance left by something that was taken down on purpose. The second thing the Council identifies in fields that have entered this gate window is what the Arcturian pattern recognition system calls signal drift. This is the experience of feeling like you cannot quite locate yourself in your own life the way you used to. Your thoughts used to have a familiar gravitational center, a set of concerns, goals, fears, and desires that consistently oriented your attention. And now that center has shifted, or blurred, or gone quiet in a way that feels wrong, because the old gravity is no longer pulling the way it did. And without that familiar gravity, you feel like you are drifting, like you are losing coherence, like you have somehow become less solid. Signal drift is not loss of self. It is the interval between two frequency signatures. The old one has released. The new one has not fully stabilized. You are living in that interval right now. And inside that interval, the absence of the old gravity is real. But the absence is not evidence that nothing is there. It is evidence that what is coming does not yet have enough density to be felt as direction. This is one of the most critical misinterpretations that causes people to abandon a gate process they were already inside. They feel the drift. They interpret the drift as emptiness, and they reach backward into old structures, old relationships, old habits, old versions of identity, trying to restore a gravity that the field already determined could not hold what comes next. The interval itself has a texture that is worth naming carefully. It is not blank. It is not featureless. Inside the drift, there are moments of unexpected precision, brief intervals where something becomes entirely clear in a way that does not feel generated by ordinary thought, a certainty about a direction that arrives without argument and then recedes before you can fully act on it, a recognition about a relationship or a situation that feels complete and final, even when nothing externally has changed, a sense of knowing something about your own future that you cannot justify through evidence, but that carries more authority than any evidence currently available to you. These moments are not imagination. They are the new frequency making brief contact with your conscious awareness before it is stabilized enough to maintain consistent access. They are signals from the trajectory the gate window is designed to give you entry into, and they are confirmation that the drift is not empty. It is full of something that does not yet have a form you can hold steady. The body participates in this process in ways that are specific and recognizable. Sleep changes are almost universally present, either a quality of unusual exhaustion that does not respond to rest, or a sharpness of awareness at hours when the body historically went quiet, or both cycling in alternating phases. There is often a pressure in the chest or the center of the skull that is not pain, but is unmistakably a kind of intensity. There are moments of extreme clarity that arrive without context and then dissolve. There are moments of unusual emotional proximity, the kind where a song, a sentence, a quality of afternoon light produces a response in the body that feels disproportionate to the trigger. As though the body is responding to something the mind has not yet been told. These are not symptoms of illness, they are field indicators. The body is a receiver, not a generator of this process, and when the field undergoes significant restructuring, the body reports what it is receiving in the only language it has: sensation, pressure, temperature, wakefulness. Wait. Learning to read those reports as data rather than distress is one of the most important recalibrations available to someone living through a gate window. The body's reports during a gate window tend to follow a pattern that the Council's mapping has documented across many fields. The exhaustion that does not respond to rest is the body registering the energy expenditure of holding two incompatible frequency states in proximity: the old architecture that is still partially active and the new frequency that is building pressure against it. That is genuinely expensive work at the energetic level, and the body communicates the cost accurately. The wakefulness at unusual hours is a different signal. It corresponds to intervals when the interference between the old and new frequencies drops to its lowest level, typically in the hours between 2 and 4 in the morning, and the body becomes briefly available to the clarity of the new signal without the static of daily life running over it. The people who find themselves awake in those hours, not anxiously, but with a quality of heightened awareness that is more interesting than distressing, are often the ones whose gate eligibility is most advanced. The body knows the window, it orients toward it, even before the mind has been told what it is. There is a stage inside this process that the Arcturian mapping records as the last loyalty test to the old line, and it is the most dangerous stage not because it causes the most obvious pain, but because it creates the most convincing argument for reversal. This is the stage where the old structures, old relationships, old professional directions, old identity containers make one final bid for coherence. They become briefly vivid again. They produce a short interval of renewed familiarity, even comfort, and a person in the middle of a gate window, exhausted by the drift, disoriented by the signal changes, can interpret that brief revival of the old as evidence that they were wrong to move, as evidence that the new direction was a mistake, as a sign that what they left behind was actually what they needed. The revival has a very specific feeling that distinguishes it from genuine restoration, but only if you know what you are looking for. Genuine restoration, the kind that happens when something unfinished actually resolves and becomes available again at a higher frequency, has an expansive quality. It opens space. It increases the sense of what is possible. The last loyalty test does not do this. It contracts. It offers familiarity in the place of expansion. It says, "This is known, this is safe, this is what you understand," without being able to offer anything beyond those assurances. And a field in the middle of genuine gate correction, genuinely fatigued by the process of structural dismantling, can find that contraction deeply appealing. The known, even when it is incompatible, can feel like relief when the unknown has been pressing against you for months with no visible resolution. The Council registers this stage clearly because it is the most statistically common point at which gate processes are interrupted. Not abandoned fully, but interrupted. The person steps backward into the old architecture, believing the break is temporary, believing the revival is genuine. And they lose the window, not permanently, but the cost is significant. Because a gate window operates within a specific frequency interval, and when a field recommits to an incompatible architecture, even briefly, the frequency alignment that enabled the window's opening begins to shift again in the wrong direction. The next eligible window may be months away, or years, or require a level of structural dismantling far more total than what the current window would have required. This is why recognition matters so deeply right now, not as consolation, as precision. The more clearly you can read what is happening in your field, the less likely you are to mistake the last loyalty test for a genuine reversal signal. The more firmly you can identify what is field correction and what is field fear, the more steadily you can move through the interval without reaching backward into a structure that has already become incompatible with what your frequency is now. What the Arcturian High Council wants this transmission to clarify, and this is the part that lands differently once the full pattern has been traced, is that the gate that opened tonight did not appear randomly. Gate windows are not distributed according to spiritual aspiration, personal virtue, or conscious desire. They emerge from the convergence of field conditions that have been building for a period far longer than the viewer typically realizes. The conditions that created your eligibility were laid down months ago, some of them years ago. Every decision that moved your frequency upward, every moment of genuine release, every relationship that ended not because of failure, but because the field had already outgrown the architecture that relationship required. Every night you stayed with an inner knowing that contradicted the external consensus. Every time you felt the pull towards something you could not explain and chose, even partially, to follow it. All of that was building toward the exact convergence that became this gate window. You did not stumble into this. You arrived at it through an accumulation of field-level choices that the Council was mapping long before this transmission was delivered to your feed. The silence that you may feel after hearing that, the quality of being recognized not just as a spiritual concept, but as a specific field, a specific signature that was observed and confirmed. That silence is data. That is the resonance of truth, registering in a field that has been waiting for something accurate enough to stop arguing with. Say this if you can feel the weight of it. What is changing in me is not random. It was not sent to punish me. It was not created by my failures. It is correction already in motion. And I do not need to fear what I finally have a name for. The gate is open, the window is measured, and everything that has felt like falling apart in recent weeks or months, the withdrawal of old certainties, the dissolution of old anchors, the strange quiet around a life that used to feel loud with direction, the Council does not read that as destruction. It reads it as the field doing exactly what it needed to do to make a trajectory available that could not be reached from where you were standing before. You are not the person who is failing. You are the field that has already outgrown its previous architecture and is now, tonight, standing inside the narrow window where what comes next is actually reachable. That is what the Council confirmed. That is what this gate means. And that is what this transmission was calibrated to deliver to the exact field that needed to hear it before the window closes. Before you scroll, leave one sign in the comments that this process has already touched your life. It could be your sleep, your thoughts, your body, your relationships, or the strange sense that reality no longer feels the same. Name it clearly. If this transmission recognized something you have been carrying in silence, share it with someone who is living through a shift they cannot explain. And if you are ready to understand the process instead of fearing it, subscribe to Arcturian Quantum. You are not watching this by accident. You are recognizing a process already in motion, and this is only the beginning.